Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, I want you to honestly ask yourself, have you ever just stopped to think about what history actually is? Right? We spend so much time cramming dates and facts into our heads, but we rarely pause to question the whole foundation of how we view the past. It is absolutely crucial we start rethinking the very nature of the history we've been taught. Take the 18th century Enlightenment philosopher Voltaire, for instance. The guy had a pretty grim perspective. He straight up described history as just a picture of crimes and misfortunes. And honestly, when you look at standard textbooks today, with their heavy focus on wars, conquests, and endless tragedies, it's super easy to see why he felt that way. But actually, scratch that. This cynical view is a massive departure from what history was originally supposed to be. Let's rewind and look at the roots of the word itself. Historia in ancient Greek literally means inquiry or knowledge gained through investigation. It wasn't designed to be this depressing, static list of human miseries. For thinkers like Aristotle, it was meant to be an active, ongoing investigation. The whole point is to figure out the past so we can actually live more meaningful lives today, right now.
So to get us there, here is our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to run through 1. Defining the past. 2. The narrow historical lens. 3. India's forgotten records. 4. Sieges shaping society. And finally, 5. A complete historical framework.
Let's dive right into Section 1, Defining the Past, looking specifically at the records of India. There's this weird, really common misconception out there that India somehow just didn't have a historical record. No way. The region has literally always documented its history. We see it everywhere, from foundational ancient texts like the Vedas and Upanishads, all the way to the 9th century devotional practices of Undal. Then you have these incredibly meticulous works like Kalhana's Rajatarangini from 1148 CE, which brilliantly mapped out the dynasties of Kashmir. From local royal genealogies to the 16th century epics of Tulsidas, the Indian past was constantly being recorded. The evidence is massive. Moving right along to Section 2, the narrow historical lens and exploring these skewed understandings. So, if we have all these incredibly rich, diverse records sitting right there, why on earth do our modern textbooks look so vastly different? Well, the source material points out that colonial-era historians, and honestly a lot of modern ones who followed their lead, created a heavily skewed narrative. They hyper-focused on conquerors, the sultans, the Mughals, the East India Company. But by doing that, they effectively wiped out the other side of the equation. They completely ignored the spiritual leaders, the local administrators, the ancient texts like the Puranas, basically the entire cultural backbone that actually kept the civilization standing during all those turbulent times. Which brings us to Section 3, India's Forgotten Records, focusing on the missing personalities. To fix this massive blind spot, the sources argue we have to dig into the native corpus and look at the incredible people totally left out of our classrooms. We're talking about absolute heavyweights here. Vijayaranya Swami, who was instrumental to the Vijayanagara Empire. Literary giants like Tulsidas and Tukaram. Profound spiritual leaders like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Narayana Guru, or Samartha Ramdas, who mentored the legendary King Shivaji. And the real kicker here? These weren't just monks hiding away in caves. They were active catalysts for massive social and political movements. They literally shaped India's governance, defense, and cultural identity. Okay, jumping into Section 4, Sages Shaping Society, focusing on societal transformation. Let's look at the ripple effect these figures had, because it's pretty mind-blowing. Take Swami Vivekananda. Rabindranath Tagore famously said, "If you want to know India, study Vivekananda. In him, everything is positive and nothing negative." Even Mahatma Gandhi said, reading Vivekananda multiplied his patriotism 1,000-fold. So if a guy like Vivekananda inspired the literal founding fathers of modern India, you kind of have to wonder, why is his story sidelined just so we can read about more battles India lost? And it wasn't just a local phenomenon either. The British author Paul Brunton traveled to meet the 20th century sage Ramana Maharshi. Just sitting near him, Brunton described feeling a steady river of quietness and a great peace penetrating his inner being. This wasn't just a neat trip, it completely transformed Brunton, and he ended up writing bestsellers that introduced these incredibly powerful ideas of introspection to the West. It spread like wildfire.
Maharshi had this way of teaching profound lessons through the simplest, most compassionate acts. Picture this. A famous freedom fighter is watching Maharshi gently scoop up baby squirrels that fell out of their nest, carefully putting them back. And Maharshi just casually observes that true wisdom lies in remaining in your nest. Turn the mind inward, because all trouble lies outside. Bam! That simple lesson on internal focus forever changed the perspective of the political leaders who witnessed it.
These sages weren't afraid to get their hands dirty with tough societal issues either. Sri Ramakrishna is a brilliant example of this. He met this guy, Surendranath Mitra, who was super rebellious and struggling with severe alcoholism. But Ramakrishna didn't shame him. He used this genius reverse psychology. He told Mitra to offer his wine to the goddess Kali before drinking it, treating it as a sacred offering. It totally shifted Mitra's psychological relationship with alcohol, completely transforming him into an upright, respected individual, a real game changer. And the crazy thing is, according to the sources, this history isn't just stuck in the past. Down in South India, during the winter festival of Dhanurmasa, history literally becomes a living present. Devotees gather and sing the exact songs of the 9th century Saint Andal. They are actively living that history right now. It completely bypasses that rigid, straight-line timeline that Western history usually relies on. All right, bringing it all home with Section 5, a complete historical framework through a decolonized approach. To really capture this vibrant reality, we need to totally rethink how we frame the past. We got to bring brilliant statecraft back into the picture. For instance, did you know compulsory education was implemented in Travancore way back in 1936? Or look at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Right as India gained independence, Patel used absolute strategic genius to navigate these intensely deadlocked negotiations, eventually securing Hyderabad with decisive police action in 1948. That is true nation building.
So, what's the solution? The source proposes a decolonized, holistic framework for future writers. Think of it like a giant puzzle. You need the great kings and queens for defense and prosperity, sure, but you equally need able administrators for nation building. You need spiritual masters for social transformation. And you need the vast native corpus like the Itihasa Purana for cultural heritage. Every single piece is required to see the whole picture. Which brings us to one final, absolutely critical question. Is it time to finally rewrite the history books? Based on what we've unpacked today, it's pretty clear a huge chunk of the story has been left out. I really want to challenge you to evaluate the history you've been spoon-fed. Look beyond the standard, tired narrative of just conquests and defeats, and go out there to find the complete, true history of the cultures you study. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the past.